YouTube, my name's Matthew, this is Cookbooks, and tonight I want to share with you something very fascinating that I learned quite some time ago, but I wanted to share it with you tonight because, well, it's very controversial. If you look in verse 10 of chapter 16, the angel of the Lord speaks to Hagar and says this: I will greatly increase your offspring, and they will not be counted for abundance. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you will conceive and give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for God has heard your prayer. And he shall be and then this is the particular spot that is the controversial spot. It says in this text, wild ass of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and over all his brothers shall he dwell. So, in verse 12, you have two phrases, two little words actually. You have wild ass, and you also have the word against. I'm going to share with something that you might find very fascinating. Like I said, though, it's very controversial between Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, because you change the meaning of this section, you change the doctrine. You change the meaning of this section, you change the doctrine. So this is what you see right here for the word wild ass. That word up there is PA.RA, okay? And if you spell that in English, it's P-E-R-E and then probably an E or an H, okay? The next word down here says Bacal. Those two words are in question. Wild ass, and we had the word against. So let's talk about both of these words. So here's the thing, though. Do those two words actually mean what they say in the Bible? If you look in your concordance, or if you have a dictionary of the Hebrew language, you will see that the word for wild ass is spelt just like you see on the screen. But there are also other words that are spelt the same way, but with different vowels. But back in the day, they didn't have vowels. So how do they know what that word actually means? You're supposed to go by context in that kind of circumstance. Just like in English, the word car, C-A-R, you take the vowel out, you're left with a C and an R. How do you know it's not the word care, C-A-R-E? Anyways, you go by context. What's very fascinating, though, is if you replace those two words with the words fruitful and with all or in all, this is what you come up with. So, starting in verse 10, the angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly increase your offspring, and they will not be counted for abundance. That's the key phrase right there. And the angel of the Lord said to her, Behold, you will conceive and give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for God has heard your prayer. And he shall be a fruitful man, his hand with everyone, and everyone's hand with him. And over all his brothers shall he dwell. Well, that's a positive message. The other one was extremely negative. It makes you wonder why you have both ways to create this little paragraph. And from what I gather, I think it's anti-Semitism on Ishmael's line. See, the Jews and the Christians both say that Ishmael was not a part of God's covenant. So I really feel bad about Ishmael and his community because they get the short end of the stick, even shorter than the Jews today. You think that the Jews have it bad because of, World War II. Well, Islam, those people, they've had it even worse for centuries because of the reading of the text. And that's just not okay. I want to share something with you. Did you know that God's covenant is not to do with a superior race and how God holds the Jews over everybody because they are better than everybody else? That's not what it is, okay? It's so ridiculous. You actually follow through the whole story, going through the lineages of the elder sons, or at least the ones that become the patriarch of their community. And God puts them to a higher status because they are like the older brother. In some circumstances, they are the older brother, and you must look up to them to know how to live life. So it's so silly to think that Ishmael got kicked out of God's covenant. It can't happen. That's not possible. Remember, God's covenant was that Abraham was going to have many nations. That was the covenant. There's nothing else to it.
And the rule is, if one letter you erase from the Torah, one word, the Torah is not kosher. You can put it in a box and send it with UPS.